Hi there, this is Christopher with Honest Home Inspection. We are at home with Honest Home, and today it's toilet day. Today we're going to show you how to assemble a brand new toilet and install it in your home and discuss the various options that are available and show you what to do and what not to do. I'm going to get this inside. We'll see you there. All right, so you're thinking you might want to replace your toilet, but you're not sure if you should or even if you can, and we're going to discuss some of the reasons why you might want to. So, tell me about your toilet. Is it the wrong size?
Yes, it's mega large.
Mega large.
Literally just sit on it and then you fall in.
It uses too much water.
It got stained yellow after a few weeks.
It's really stained and gross.
It was ultra turbo flush, so like you get sucked down into the draining pipes if you just flushed it. So
it has a small crack in the lid of the basin.
Was it broken or cracked?
it doesn't, but it has a hole for a crack.
What about? So there are a variety of different types of toilets available out there for you to purchase. We have chosen to use this one. It is a gravity-assisted toilet, and it is a bit of a taller toilet, which is something that we like for comfort, and a gravity-assisted toilet will be more affordable to purchase, is cheaper and easier to fix, and is the most common toilet available. If you have questions about further toilets, feel free to leave a comment below. All right, so these are the tools you're going to need to install your new toilet. You're going to need some form of adjustable wrench, as there are different sizes of bolts, hardware, and fittings that you'll need to remove. You'll need a standard screwdriver that is most likely for use inside the tank, as most of the tank bolts use a standard slotted driver. Also a putty knife of some variety to remove the old wax ring, very helpful. When you get to the installation portion, you'll need to have a level, because you'll want to level your stool so that it doesn't rock and operates correctly, and then you'll want to have a sponge. This is just a grout sponge. They're, I don't know, $2. They're cheap, and they collect a lot of water. They're great for emptying out the tank and the stool of the old toilet before you remove it. And then lastly, I like to wear knee pads. I find them very helpful, as you do spend a bit of a prolonged amount of time in front of the toilet on your knees. Generally not in a party type fashion. All right, a quick word about additional supplies you may need while installing your toilet. If you're buying your toilet as a kit or a prepackaged, more than likely it will come with some sort of a generic wax ring and hardware. This is the wax ring. This is the part that seals your toilet to the floor. You'll notice that this one actually has a no-seep ring in it. It's like a little funnel to make sure everything's properly going down the drain. These are your tank bolts, or not tank bolts, sorry, the stool bolt that bolts it to the floor, and the little caps that go on top. This one's actually pretty good. Sometimes they come with a very thin little wax ring, and I don't like those. I usually go to the store, I get a number 10 no seep. This is the rating of size, and as you can see, this one's quite a bit thicker. It's big. This one got a little mushed, but it'll still work just fine. The reason I like these is because not all flooring systems are the same. If you've had tile installed in your floor, sometimes there's a gap between the subfloor and the tile where the flange is, and a standard toilet wax ring will not seal well and the toilet will leak. The number 10s are great. They're about the same price. They're like $5. They're super cheap. And you can put this in place, mush the toilet down on top of it, and it'll just squish, and it'll get a really good seal. So don't be afraid to squish a little bit of wax. That's what this is beeswax. And I wouldn't make candles with it, though. It's not very nice wax. Anyway, go ahead and put it in, seal it up. This particular toilet, unless my floor was really deep, I'd probably be okay using the ring that came with it. But have one of these on hand anyway. You can always return it. Next, you're going to need some shims. I like these composite shims. They are very durable, they won't compress, and they won't rot. And they're fairly easy to cut and snap off. So when you set your stool, you'll need these to level it. When you bring in your level, you set it, use the shims in the level, and that'll make sure your toilet doesn't rock and is set up correctly. Supply lines that lead to your toilet are oftentimes just the white plastic supply lines, and they get very brittle with age, and this crimp section here can fail. So pay attention to those. I just plan on having a new supply line on hand and replace it if you can. They're a couple of bucks. If yours is in good condition, then not a necessity, but bear in mind that yours, if your toilet is very old, may need to be replaced. It may even be a solid line from your old toilet where it's a rigid piece of copper that was bent in place and will not match your new toilet. So be prepared to replace the supply line and just ask for a toilet line. They're pretty much standard. They just come in different lengths. I do like the braided stainless steel ones as these are less likely to leak. The valve, this is a compression valve, and this would be the water supply valve that comes out of the wall. The compression portion, not everybody's going to have these. Some of you will have sweated fittings, some of you will have PEX. If you have a compression fitting, the older style ones that twist open, they're called a gate valve, and they're prone to failure. There's a little seal inside that can tear and break, and you may not be able to shut it off all the way, or you may not be able to turn it on all the way, or it may leak after you shut it off and just drip out of the fitting itself. So these literally just unscrew. This is on the copper line. This little ring is on the copper line, and the valve goes on, and when you tighten it down, it compresses and creates a seal. You may not be able to get this part off because it's already compressed on, and if you don't have room to cut the pipe off, leave this in place, get a new valve, because that's the part that failed. This part's still good, and just screw the new one back on. This style is a quarter turn. If you can see in there, there's just a ball valve in there. You can see it turning. These are great. These are less likely to leak. These are good for decades. So quick note about valves. And the final thing you'll need is some sealant around the base of the toilet. You need an antimicrobial tub and shower caulk, mold and mildew resistant. It could be white, it could be clear, whatever color you like. It can match your toilet. This is just one brand. It's not the one you need to buy, but this one will do it. This is a kitchen and bath. There's also tub and shower, but it should be a glossy antimicrobial tub and shower type sealant. All right, so it's time to turn off your toilet and get it disconnected and start getting ready to remove it. So reach down here. This is your shutoff valve. And as you can see, I have a problem here already. These valves have what is called a packing nut. It's this nut right here where the shaft of the valve goes through, and it obviously is loose. So we are going to have to tighten that up. Give it a little bit of a turn. And voila. Might just give it a little extra snug. All right, we don't want any extra water here. We're going to make enough as it is. All right, water's shut off. We can now flush the toilet. I like to hold the handle down so that it flushes as much as possible out of the tank. So now if we look in there, we've gotten as much water out of the tank as we can by manually flushing it. We'll go ahead and use the sponge here in a minute to get everything else out of there. We got to get the extra water out of here, so here's where our sponge comes in handy, if we can get in there. So jam it down in there. Soak up as much as we can. I'm just squeezing it into the trash can. There's not a lot of room. Like this one doesn't have a lot of room. I'm actually going to unscrew the float arm, take that off. Now I've got more room to get in there. Just soak it up. So the reason you don't want to take your supply hose off before you get this empty is, of course, once you disconnect the supply hose, the water in the tank can just run out the bottom. So, all right, we're more or less dry in there. When you have your new toilet installed, you can just dump all that water back in the toilet and flush it away. All right, and then this just unscrews. The toilet style lines always have this plastic flange. See, a bunch of water just kind of drizzled out. Good thing that we had the sponge handy to get that out of there. We want to get the stool bolt off. Just pop it with a screwdriver, and you can see the bolt right there. It's actually more of a nut. The T-bolt is what's set down in the floor. And we'll show you those in a second. These are pretty simple to get off. Sometimes those little plastic caps are kind of welded on there. They go in one direction and they don't come back off. This one looks like they put the metal washer between the plastic and the tank, and you can see where it rusted away. I believe the metal washer is usually supposed to go on top of the plastic, but it depends on the tank. I keep saying tank. It depends on the toilet. Again, just put that in, pop it off, little twist. Pop it loose. And this is the part where some of you are going to be squeamish. They make what's called a suction gun, and you can certainly buy one. But usually you just put that in there, and again, clean the toilet ahead of time. It's not so bad. You're going to wash your hands when you're done with this anyway. As long as you didn't have Taco Bell before doing this project, you'll be all right. You can wear gloves if you want. Make gloves for washing dishes or whatnot. Those would be great for this. But you got to get all this water out of here. Otherwise, when you lift the toilet up, it's going to leak all over the place and it's going to make a huge mess. You won't be able to carry the toilet out of your house without dumping close to a gallon of water all over your floor. And that's probably the last place you want it. So we're almost there. There's just a little bit left in the trap down here, and I'm trying to get it all. This is what all the pros do. They either use that suction gun and then they jam a sponge down there. That's why a plumber is going to charge you $300 to change your toilet. And for that price, you can buy your new toilet. Do it yourself. All right. So I'm going to set those aside. Toilet is now empty, or as empty as we're going to get it, of water, both inside and out. And we are ready to just give it a nudge. See? She just popped free. All right, I just used to get it on either side. You can grab underneath here, bend your knees, just give it a little lift, and gently slide it back. And there's your toilet hole. Now, if you're going to be leaving this open for any length of time, I do recommend getting just like a plastic grocery bag and sticking that down in the hole. That'll help keep some of the sewer gas out from wafting up and filling your space. We're going to put a bag, just jam it down in that hole. Not too far, of course. You don't want to lose it down there, but you can even keep the loops out so it's easier to get back out. I'm going to spray some cleaner on the floor since we don't know what's underneath of that toilet. Could have been gross. And I'm just going to give it a quick scrub. You can tell that this toilet was caulked to the floor before because there's some old caulk still here. So now we're going to get this old wax ring off. And this is everybody's favorite part because, you know, it's gooey and old and chewy and, you know, it's pretty slimy. This one has a no-seep ring in it, so it might be easier to get out. Some of the old ones you just literally had to pry, scoop. Yeah, see, our plastic bag came off. We'll put that back down in there in a minute. This one is very special. It had 2 no-seep rings installed. I don't know that you need to have, come back, 2 installed. That's a lot of no seepage. They probably, as I mentioned before, didn't get a good seal and had to put a second ring in, and they just bought 2 no-seep rings and overlapped them, possibly restricting the opening a little bit. And I'm just trying to get all the goo out of here. So you probably just saw the tank bolt move. So these are what's called a T-bolt. I keep saying tank bolt. Boy, good Lord. The toilet bolt. And these are what's called a T-bolt because they have a T shape on there and they fit into a slot. And don't worry, we're going to get new ones. These ones are pretty rusty, pretty corroded, and they can break. Just use a paper towel and brush some of this stuff away. I don't know if you can see this. This is dripping here. That means that that valve did not shut off all the way, which means it's due for replacement. I'm not going to cover that in this video because this particular valve is not the same one that I showed you. This one's actually not a compression valve. For whatever reason, there's a supply line buried in my floor. Somewhere under my floor is another spot where maybe that supply line is connected, and I'll have to tear my floor out to discover what that is. You know, prior homeowner did that, and he's got to roll with the punches. So for now, we're going to let it drip a little bit and keep rolling here. So I'm just going to put this in there for a minute till I'm ready to get that out of there. Collect all my trash and move it out of the way. Give the floor another quick spritz just to make sure everything is lovely under there. All right, the sound you're hearing is me opening up my new tank bolts. God, I keep saying tank bolts. I'm just having a day. My new T-bolts. So these are the ones that have replaced the ones I just took out. And they just pop in here and you wiggle them over to where they're going to line up. Which should be directly opposed to each other. Let me get some junk out of here. There's a bunch of grout and thin set from the tile floor in here. Now, usually these come with a little plastic keeper that helps hold them in place for whatever reason. Well, they're getting cheap on me, but this set didn't come with them. So tank bolts are floor bolts, T-bolts, there we go, are notorious for being a pain in the butt when you try to set the toilet, because you can see they're just flopping all around here. We're going to use some of the wax ring to help hold these still once we get the wax ring in place. So peeling your wax ring, they don't come out of the plastic. I usually just peel it back like a flower. Try not to touch it with your hands too much because once you get it on you, it's kind of grody. It's really sticky. Okay, and then just peel it out. You can hold it by the no-seep ring. We're going to pull this out of here since we're going pretty quick. And we're just going to set this in place here, right over the opening. Line it up, and we're going to just kind of press the tank bolts into the side. When we go to actually set the stool, the tank bolts, we'll be able to adjust them as needed, but at least they won't be flopping all around. So I'll get this junk out of here. All right. So here's our new one. And I'm just going to get in the way of the camera here because there's no easy way to do this. I'm going to pick it up and show you really quick. So this is the part where your wax ring goes. That's the part that mates to it. Some people try to squish the wax ring onto there. In my experience, it always falls off right as you're about to set it down over the tank bolts. So I like to set it on the floor, have the tank bolts ready to go, and then just lower this so that the slots here for the tank bolts line up and you'll be right on target. Be very careful as you're manipulating this not to drop it. So you drop it in your toilet, it's all over. Oh. All right, got them lined up. We're going to give it a little bit of a squish. Press it down into place. that toilet is set. So there's my bolt. You can see it's a little bit floppy still. That's going to get better here shortly. All right, plastic washer and nut. This is the part where it gets tricky because you have to try to hold it up. Your putty knife comes in handy here because you can kind of wedge it in the threads and then use your fingers to get it started. Now, if you haven't cleaned off the putty knife, like I didn't, you're going to get schmutz on your nice new plastic collars. But that's okay. They're all cleanable. This one's a little bit smaller. All right, so we're not going too snug yet. We're just getting a little bit of tension on it. Pay attention, it's stamped on here. It says this side up. If you put these on upside down, the caps won't snap on. This side I didn't need to do the other trick, so I'm just going to hand tighten it. All right, and that actually looks really good. So side to side it's level. Let's just double check. Yeah, front to back, I don't know if we're going to get that level because my floor might not be level either. So your goal is to get it as level as possible without it rocking. I don't want you to try and get it perfectly level because shimming it up that far is going to cause a serious problem with your toilet. You may run into issues with its sealing. You want it set on the floor tight. Ideally, it's level from side to side. You're going to have to judge by your floor. If your floor is really sloped, ideally, you're just going to get it as close as you can and keep it from rocking. So the other thing you're going to want to do is just make sure it's square in the opening so it's not pivoted to the side so you're sitting funny. So stand up, eyeball it. I think this actually looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and snug it down and move on. So the thing with snugging down a toilet, I'm just going to show the one side here right now, is you want to be careful to get it tight to the floor, but if you go crazy, you're going to crack the base. So you're not trying to compress anything here, you're just making it tight. The other thing you'll run into is if you really have to crank it down, you're going to end up deforming your little plastic washer that holds your cap on, and your caps won't work either. So once again, I can't stress this enough, you need to put enough tension on there to hold it tight to the floor, but not so tight that you crack and damage your toilet. So, just going to give you a, it shouldn't rock, it shouldn't move, it should be tight. So I've got this one pretty good. I always try to, when I'm doing an inspection, give it a little nudge with my knees. This toilet is tight to the floor, so we're going to keep going. Now, we're lucky in that these tank bolts are short. Sometimes you run into the long ones where you got to put your cap on and it's just floating there and it won't go down. You may need to have a hacksaw on hand. So apologies I didn't have that in the initial tool section. These ones I knew were short, so I kind of forgot about it. So these just push on and they snap in place and it's all dressed out. So we got a pack of hardware. This is our tank seal, and finally, tank bolts. Been talking about them this whole time. I finally got some. So now I'm on the right track. Unboxing. All right, so here's our tank. This one's pre-assembled. The toilet that you buy may not be. You may need to put all these parts together, and mostly just recommend on these when they're pre-assembled to just make sure everything's tight. Be careful not to bang stuff together. Certainly don't drop it, as these are quite fragile. If you drop it and crack it, it's over. You got to go buy a new toilet. So things are looking pretty good. This is a big ring that holds the center flush portion, and this is where your filler is. So where our tank seal goes, you can see it's a tapered seal, and it's got a recess here. That's what fits over this. It should stretch a little bit. It should go out over the nut, and you make a nice tight seal. And then when you go to put your tank bolts in, these have a little flange. These little things pop through the holes here from the inside. So when I turn it back over, they will get secured by these little nuts, little plastic nuts, and they just run up against the bottom. Okay, gently turn it over. Okay, so you can see all of our holes are lined up. You can see straight through. That's lined up perfectly with the toilet hole, or the hole in the stool. We're going to go ahead and push these through. And these are probably going to compress a little bit as they get tightened. So 2 to 3 turns, past hand tight, and then we do a final tighten on the last bolt. So your toilet will be fairly specific on what they want to ensure that it is leak free. So we're going to hold this in place. The very first couple of turns starts pulling the tank out of position. So, oops, sorry about that, guys. Taking you for a ride. Just getting the initial tension on there. And I'm going to have to hold it. So excuse my arm again. Push that down. All right, that one just got to hand tight. And 1, 2, and I think we're only going to get another half. It's pretty snug. All right, try rocking your tank a little bit. It should be nice and snug. It shouldn't flop around back and forth. If you jump and touch your tank and it's flopping around, it means you haven't done it tight enough yet. All right, we're going to hook this bad boy up. Then I'm going to wipe up all the water back here because I want to ensure that there's no leaks. I don't want to think that I missed anything. All right, I'm going to turn this on, open it up easy, and then crank it open the rest of the way. Make sure that nothing's dripping here. As I mentioned before, these are prone to leakage, so if it is dripping after you open it back up, go ahead and tighten. Oops, I can't quite see that. Go ahead and tighten down that packing nut again if it starts dripping. So you want to make sure that this is dry. Not missing any, losing any water there at the base or at the base of the toilet. You want to be paying attention to make sure nothing's coming out here. Tank's filling up. There's some, guessing manufacturer's debris in there. That's what that black stuff that's floating in there. It's plastic shavings. This one seems to fill a little bit faster. I want to make sure this guy's pointed down. This hose sprays around. It's going to make a big mess. It's got a little clip on it here to help hold it. That's the part that's helping to fill the bowl. You can see the bowl's filling up too. All right, I don't know if you can tell, there's a water line that's stamped right here. So we're going to need to adjust our float so that the tank stops filling at that line. And it looks like we're going to go past it. So we're going to do a little tank adjustment here. So this is where we adjust it from. We need to turn this counterclockwise. Do one turn. Flush. All right, so first flush, we're getting a little bit of a leak, and it's coming from between the tank and the stool. Looks like that forward tank bolt needs to be tighter. All right, I'm going to dry this up because we want to make sure that it's not still leaking. All right, we're still above our fill line here by a little bit. So I'll give it another turn. And there we are coming up the line. Will it stop? Ah, we passed it again. We are so close. Again, here's our water level. We need to come right to this line. And that is the line set by the factory to optimize the flush, so it only uses the appropriate amount of water. Perfect. We are right on the line. All right, so here's our tank cover. It's attractive. Ready to go. All right, toilet seat. Here we go. A lot of the nicer toilets come with a soft close. I can always tell when my son gets up by how early the toilet seat slams in the morning. So these little tabs, on the hinge, these pop up, and those are the holes where your bolts go. Obviously, holes are there. Just line these puppies up. You just press them down if they're not laying down all the way. These are just nylon, so you don't want to go crazy with them, but a loose toilet seat is no fun, so don't be afraid to give them some snug. Just don't go crazy, because again, you don't want to break them. So, bolts go down. You'll notice there's a little tab on here. At some point, as you're turning, these will lock against the side of the toilet, allowing you to keep tightening everything down, so you don't have to continue to hold them. All right, get my screwdriver out. I'm just holding the tab for now until I get close so that I can line everything up and make sure the seat is square. And then it should, like I said, lock against the side of the toilet and allow us to do it with one hand. I'd also like to point out there's kind of a taper on here that recesses into the slot in the bottom of the toilet so that you get a nice tight grip. These actually have a Phillips slot in them, but probably need a number 3 because it's quite a large slot. So if you don't want to strip it out, you probably want to use a number 3, etc., a large Phillips. All right, so this is slotted, so you can kind of line things up. Line it up so that the front of the toilet's lined up and straight on the bowl, and then start snugging her down. Almost there. So once you think you're tight, give it maybe another quarter turn. Again, don't go nuts. You're just keeping this thing from sliding side to side is all you're doing. So, boom, and then fold little tabbies over it. They lock into place. No slammy. It will very slowly fall into place. All right, we've been on the journey with our toilet replacement. You've heard several reasons to have your toilet replaced, and we have taken you through all the steps to do so. Tune in later in the week for our next project. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hit that bell for notification of our next video, and we will see you next time. Move the toilet out of the way and leave you to contemplate Ninja Turtles.